All right, guys. This is going to be kind of a weird tutorial here as we look through Diamond Mine Baseball's help settings. The reason why this is a little bit strange is because for many of you, the idea of an era is not going to be very strange and unusual, but it really is something that we should talk about and we should look at when we're looking at this game and kind of how it works. One of the things I've always liked about Diamond Mine Baseball is the fact that it's very clear about how eras work and exactly what it means and what the whole concept is behind it. That's not the case for a lot of its competitors. And so we'll just go straight ahead here and we'll look at the help file again and we'll read through this. Again, my apologies. This is going to be probably too small for most of you to see unless you have quite a large screen. And even then with the video quality, it may be really fuzzy. It's actually fuzzy on my screen too because of VirtualBox, but that's another issue. So I'll just go ahead and read through this here for you, right? This is Tom Tippett's writing. He says here that much of baseball's rich tradition is due to the unchanging nature of the game. Nevertheless, some aspects of baseball have changed dramatically over time. For example, today league batting averages are typically around 270, but over the past 70 years, they've ranged from under 240, which we see in 1908, to over 300, which we'll see eventually in 1930, due to changes in rules, ballparks, and equipment. Notice, due to changes in rules, ballparks, and equipment. Is this due to changes in players? Probably not. That's what I would say, but there are people who would disagree with me. I know, we love you guys. At the turn of the 20th century, it was common for shortstops to make over 60 errors in a season. Today, few shortstops make more than 25 errors. Also, at the turn of the 20th century, it was common for starting pitchers to complete over 80% of the games they started. Today, teams rely much more on their relief pitchers, with starting pitchers completing fewer than 10% of their starts. Actually, today, in 2023, if you throw a complete game, it's a miracle. Pitchers in the leagues using the designated hitter rule usually allow one more run every 2 games than they would in a non-DH league because they do not face weak hitting pitchers. It is not possible to play realistic games among teams of different eras without adjusting for these changing playing conditions. For example, without these adjustments, a 1912 team would have almost no chance of beating a 1984 team because it would make 2 to 3 times as many errors. Are the 1984 fielders really that much better? Of course not. They just have the advantage of using modern gloves and playing on artificial turf. Let me give you a guess as to what year this was written. Anyway, sorry, Tom. Or to use a modern example, a pitcher from a DH league typically allows an extra run every 2 games compared with a pitcher who does not have to face a DH. If you want to see what would happen if this pitcher was traded to a non-DH league, or you wanted to release all of the players from both leagues and draft new rosters, you need a way to make sure the DH league pitcher is not unfairly punished. Diamond Mine Baseball uses eras to adjust for these factors. In Diamond Mine Baseball, a 280 hitter in 1968, when the league batting average was under 250, is a better hitter than someone who hit 280 in 1930 when the average player batted 300, right? Let me say that again. So in Diamond Mine, since remember we're in the era still of batting average means something, a guy who hits 280 in 1968 will be ranked better than a hitter who hit 280 in 1930 because of what the league average is. Is that fair? Is that not fair? I would argue that it's a little bit more complicated question than that, but that's something to keep in mind when we're playing with this, right? A shortstop making 40 errors in 1912 is a better fielder than a shortstop making 30 errors in 1993. That I actually agree with. A starting pitcher completing 30% of his games in 1984 is more durable relative to his peers than someone who completed 50% of his starts in 1920. And a DH league pitcher with a 3.30 earned run average is a better pitcher than someone with a 3.00 ERA in a non-DH league, right? So to keep that in the right context, we're talking, of course, about baseball when ERA was considered to be something that mattered. Because today, I think you'd have a hard time even saying that someone with a lower ERA is a better pitcher than someone with a higher ERA. That's a completely different line of issues. But it shows you sort of what the thinking is behind this, right? I call this out in part because there's a lot of important stuff here that you want to keep in mind if, say, you wanted to create your own baseball simulation, or if you were going to look at different eras using more modern statistics, right? You need to remember stuff like this and kind of know where we've been. All right, we'll go on. For many Diamond Mine Baseball owners, it is enough to know that you're using a game that adapts to different playing conditions. However, if you want to create or modify players, create new leagues and rosters, or play games with teams from different seasons, you need to know a little more. The remainder of this help topic describes the information contained in an era and the procedures for adding, changing, and deleting eras. So we won't worry too much about the procedures, but we'll worry a little bit more about the topics. Now, there's a couple other interesting things that we'll talk about here really quickly. I'll just go here through the not the technical side, but there's a little bit right afterwards. The Diamond Mine Baseball Historical Era Database. Once upon a time, anyone who wanted to create players in Diamond Mine Baseball had to start by creating the era against which those players should be evaluated. If you were creating all of the players for a single real-life season, that wasn't too bad, because you'd need only 1 or 2 eras. If you were creating a collection of all-time great players drawn from all of baseball history, you might need to create dozens of eras. And so to simplify the process of creating players, Diamond Mine Baseball now includes a database with an era for every big league season that has been completed since 1894. You can use these historical eras directly in the player creation and modification process, and you can import any of those eras into your database so you can use them in your own leagues. So you don't have to create your own eras anymore. You can if you want for something that's foreign or something that's odd. And we can actually take a look at that here. So we go over here to the organizer and go to eras. Like we could click on new and create a brand new one. We can import an era. So we want to have an era from historical eras, see? And it goes all the way back to 1984 National League, and it will go up to 2022. So we can do anything that we want with this. We could, let's say that we like 1901. So we'll get the 1901 American League. There is our era, and we double click on this, and we can see it includes the total numbers of at-bats, of hits, doubles, triples, and home runs. Walks, you can estimate the number of intentional walks. I don't think that was kept back then. I don't know if hit by pitch was kept or not, and strikeouts. And from that, I believe automatically, I think we'll read about this maybe next time, it will give you these rates, which are the rates that Diamond Mine Baseball goes on. Interestingly enough, look at this, average pitches per start, 110. Do you really think in 1901 they were throwing only 110 pitches per start? I don't think so. No siree, Bob. This is interesting stuff to look at, because for 1949, they're estimating 124 pitches per start. In fact, in their neutral era, when you look at it, the average is 100. So I think the 1901 example is probably a little bit off, but who knows? You can say what you want to say about that. Anyway, I'm interested in knowing what you guys think about this. Diamond Mine Baseball is not the only program that uses eras like this. It's kind of, I believe it's become sort of a standard in the industry when it comes to baseball simulation games. It'd be kind of hard to imagine having one in which eras are not being used like this, right? But it's a pretty interesting concept, and it's an interesting thing to have around, to sort of play around with in your mind. So I'm interested to know what you guys think about this. Is this a good idea or a bad one? And especially, is there some other thing that you would recommend putting into eras, right? If we're not using batting average and ERA, how else can we look at this? What do you think people should do nowadays? I'll leave it at that. Talk to you later. Bye.